Well, good evening and welcome back to the Cairo International Stadium for the last time at these championships, and it's straight into our gold medal matches. It's Italy versus Germany in the women's team competition. So it is Italy versus Germany for the gold medal here, the penultimate gold medal that will be contested here in Cairo. Italy line up with Eva Borova, Barbara Gabea, Gianni Cirillo, Gianna Della Corte, Maria Caproni and Iris Gardini. Germany have Renate Alles, Frauke Holbein, Dagmar Fischer, Karen Janssen, Brigitte Grunke and Ute Schiffmann. The referees, well, the main floor referees are going to be Suzanne Voigt of Canada and Alain Hisham of Egypt. I'm Karen Bashir, and joining me for this final commentary session here in Cairo is an American referee who's been a busy boy, Ryland Delap. Ryland, yeah, it's been a great championship, but you guys have been very busy out there.
Absolutely.
Suzanne Voigt and Aya Hashim have the honour of doing this gold medal match, but how do you guys feel after 7 days of refereeing?
I'm certainly exhausted. It's been a great time though. I've had locals show me around, and it's been a lot of great fencing, and you know, the veterans is something that's very refreshing. The way that they treat each other and the camaraderie amongst countries. It's actually, you know, it brings me to tears a lot of times to see how they interact with one another. It's actually kind of refreshing. So, you know, aside from the exhaustion and you know being a little under the weather, I think it's pretty good for 7-day, you know, competition for me. I mean, 12 days overall, I suppose. But how long is the Worlds?
It's, well, the Worlds can go on for a long time because you're qualification days. Here we have the stand-up at the beginning of the tournament. Italy always with a little bit of a colourful display. The Senior World Championships is 9 days, but here 7 days is a big ask, especially given the fact that you've actually got 3 categories here, so it's like 3 times the Senior World Championships, and they still managed to get it done in 7 days. But this is what it's all about, the gold medal here. Now, I know that the Italians are extremely keen to get this gold medal, and that's for one reason only.
Oh, they're just behind us on the medal count.
Trail the USA by 2 gold medals. GBR, Great Britain are in second place with 4, Italy with 3, but they've picked up a bronze medal here in the men's team competition, but they need another one here to overtake Great Britain.
Yes.
No, another gold, I should say. Silver won't do it. So all to play for in the medal table.
Certainly proud of the USA. It's come quite far away in the lead here.
They have, haven't they? But I suppose those 3 teams, USA, Great Britain, and Italy, are the ones that field the biggest teams, biggest contingent.
That's true. I'm actually a little surprised. You know, France and Russia didn't have as much success at this competition.
Yeah, and you know, we've mentioned it before that there have been people who've decided not to come to this tournament for security reasons, and less so down the French team, who had a couple of their sort of 4th and 5th ranked fencers taking the additional spots.
Well, actually, some of their top fencers as well decided, for whatever reasons, perhaps exhaustion, that fenced in the individual, did not fence in the team, which surprised me because for the men's team, Colombe is a really strong. Calam is a very strong fencer from France, and he didn't compete today. That definitely makes for a huge difference.
Yeah, some of the teams pre-select as well. Some of the teams select before they arrive here, so it doesn't really matter if you've done well in the individual event. We've seen
Yes.
a number of teams.
Well, he was the number 2 in the world. That's a weird story. I actually had to give the first, possibly the first P black card in individual international events from the number 2 in the world for at least the veteran rankings against the number 1. So that was a strange event, but either way.
Well, we've had a minor delay here, but we are ready to get underway at last. And it will be Suzanne Voigt who takes control of the first match. Iris Gardini, the C category fencer for Italy on the left, up against Ute Schiffmann of Germany on the right. This for the gold medal at these World Championships.
Now, I've been in the men's actually all day today. Who would you say is the tanks for each of these weapons? The ones who are really going to carry away, the point?
Well, I think here we've got an interesting lineup, but you have to say that Ava Borra probably is the star player on the Italian team. I think it's a bit of a toss-up between Fischer and Iris, but I think the category A's are going to be the ones that decide the outcome of this. So category C fencers going off first in this gold medal match, followed by the B category and then the A category fencers.
A strong blade work from the right. Scardini is looking for a kind of opportunity to just make a simple touch on the hand, but I'm a kind of fencer. I love to go off the blade, but that's because my main weapon is foil. It's kind of interesting to see the different types of strategies that the fencers come to strip with.
So we get a minute without a hit, and we are going to have our passivity called here, non-combativity as it's now known, and that will be a P yellow card.
There's been a lot of confusion with that rule, but it's not a bad rule. It's just certainly not used to the full application if it makes it all the way to the P black. But
it's been threatened in the team event today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But hasn't actually happened here.
I actually wonder if she's going to stop this clock at 1 minute if it makes it there, or she'll go all the way to 56 seconds, because there's kind of a latency on the stop from the last P yellow. Yep.
Well, that'll stop the clock. A double hit first of this gold medal match. I think it's an interesting one here, because I wonder if both teams will happily play out a couple of P yellows, a P yellow and a couple of P reds here to try and force the hand of the other team.
Yes.
The top two teams coming into the tournament at the beginning of the day, Italy number 1, Germany number 2.
It really depends. If there are more conservative fencers, then it's certainly something that is the likely strategy, because as soon as one is forced to come out, that other team can keep their conservative actions is going to be advantaged. And that's what ended up happening when I had to give the P black before. Is both fencers are both amazing fencers, the number 1 and the number 2. Just like this, their first risk gets punished, so they play very conservatively.
Yeah, but now the situation for the Germans is that they can't afford for passivity to be called, because they will get a red card.
Yes.
As a trailing team, you're the one that suffers. If you're level, both get the penalties.
Yep. And so now the game is completely different now that the score, there's a differential.
So to some extent, perhaps not, because there's less than a minute left on the clock, so a P yellow can't be called. So Schiffmann might say, right, okay, well, I can come out of this with just a 1-point deficit.
Absolutely, but when they go into the next round, Germany is forced to try to level it out within that minute.
Well, an intriguing start. Maybe not the hit fest that we've seen in previous matches, but don't forget those are the P70 athletes coming off the piste. And if we've got our score sheets correct, we should have our P60 athletes coming on. And that, as things stand on the score sheet that I've got, certainly is Dagmar Fischer of Germany on the right. Now, it does say on my score sheet that it's Della Corti coming out, but it's not. I know that is Gianna Cirillo coming on for the Italians.
Yeah, the rules with this team is you're allowed to, at the very start of the match, you can completely change the order. Not the order of the age groups, but the name. So you can change out your, you have 2 fencers for each age group, and you can select whichever one you would like. And unfortunately, because this is a kind of a newer team match system, that the fencing time actually does not currently allow for that. So they have to do it. So we don't have the updated sheet. But they're allowed 1 substitution only.
Even after that?
Yes. So it's interesting how you can really, decide, different fencers and then make that 1 substitution later on. So it's kind of a clever format. I actually rather like it. It's different, and there's certainly a lot of strategy that is that they're playing with at this competition for this team event. And I've been enjoying it actually.
The start of the second leg, Italy with the slenderest of leads here. It does mean that Dagmar Fischer of Germany can't allow the clock to count down to below 2 minutes because non-combativity will be called if there are no hits in that minute.
I was going to say it's very interesting because we have what looks like a very counter-offensive fencer on the right for Germany, and Cirillo, is that how you say her name? Cirillo? Who seems to be wanting to pressure a lot, and I actually am, hate to say it, but I'm against her strategy here because I would have tried to draw out the counter-offensive fencer because it's out of her comfort zone. But now the playing field has been leveled, and the German fencer gets to continue with her game.
And the way this carry on now is if Cirillo says, "Oh, too risky to go after Fischer now," non-combativity could play its part again.
But it'll play at an even field instead of in her favor.
Yeah, but even more so that Cirillo, because she's taken a risk and lost out, she may back off and not be so offensive. That's intriguing.
Ironic, yeah.
It's intriguing, and like you say, it's an interesting format. And part of another reason why it's so interesting is when there's 6 fights instead of 9, as we see at open level, there's no room for manoeuvre. You haven't got as much time to recover if you go behind.
That's true, but there's an interesting aspect that you might actually just fence that same fencer again.
Yes.
So there could be a change, but you could just be. And looks like we do have it.
Well, the referee was alerted to something from the assistant referee.
I know it's the P red, yes. So there's the first P red. We'll have 1 more of those, and then it gets really interesting with the P blacks. But I don't believe we'll get there, but it's possible.
1:35 on the clock, so 35 seconds left on the clock, and if we get down to that with no more hits scored, we will have the second and final P red.
Imagine it would be smart for the teams to retain their substitution just in case.
Yep. I think that's the way this one's very likely to go, in fact.
And that is, for those who don't know, if the P black does come out, it actually is for the fencers who are on the piece at that moment. So if the teams each have a substitution, they can sub that fencer in and continue to fence. If the team has already made a substitution, that team will forfeit.
So 20 seconds left before we're going to get the second P red. Cirillo does look like she's trying to find a way through, but Fischer seems she's quite happy to play out for the P red. She's staying containing. She's not going for anything, reacting. With 6 seconds, 5 to go before we're going to get a P red here. Cirillo, is she going to explode? That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Now we are going to see, I think, this going through to a P black card.
It's possible. Well, this bout, there's no more time for another P card to come out, and so they will, reach the next bout, without that. But the next time you see Fischer and Cirillo come out, it's very likely because Fischer is a much more counter offensive. She wants, her opponent to commit so she can use her length and just make that extension and hit just before her opponent does. And if she gets this matchup again, then it's very likely to happen.
If we get that far, only in the second leg here, we will close this out. Time is going to run out.
Without a touch, it looks like, as well.
They're still looking and feeling around the bell, but 4 apiece, and it's Chirio that's not happy. But actually, I think I'd rather be in the Italians' boots at the moment. We're having the higher rank. No one's used a substitute.
Now, is it the rank? Their rank is higher in the FIE because the rule is it's the FIE ranking.
There is no FIE ranking.
And there is no FIE ranking, so they're going to take the post pool seating in that case for this. No?
I checked this out earlier on because I was...
This is strange because when we applied it, we did have an FIE ranking for the individuals.
Right, so here I've checked this with the head of the referees delegation in DT, and it's going to be based on the initial ranking at the beginning of the day, which is based on the individual results here at this tournament, because there is no team ranking.
It's based, but so where? That's interesting because, you know, for the individual they had the FIE rankings, but that was based on, I wasn't exactly sure where they got those numbers.
Previous world championships,
that's what I
previous
suppose
zonal championships.
But the last world champion was actually the number 2 who lost due to my P black card. And Kwan, who won the bout, was number 1. Maybe he won previous 2 years ago. That's something I certainly have yet to fully understand.
Well, look, we've got Eva Borrower on for Italy here up against Renata Alice. And in defense...
Quite an impressive touch right there. The way to keep fighting as that pass occurs and still put that light on was really, that was quite this state of mind there to keep that touch. That's a veteran at his best right there. Her best.
These are the children of the team, the 50 to 59-year-olds. So you can see Borrower pressing and trying to find a way through. Again, missing now. The first action is no. You're allowed to have one go at your opponent when they go past. It's the second action that lands for Alice, so it doesn't count.
It's actually something that it's said all the time. It's actually not true. You get as many shots as you want as long as the last shot starts before the pass. As long as that last attempt to hit starts before the fencers are passed. It just so happens that when somebody flushes, it's more often that you get one shot and they've already passed. But if you can take more shots before they pass, it's a valid touch. And in this case, one was missed, the pass was already there, and then the remise is no longer valid. It's a rule of thumb I hear all the time that it's just like, it's not quite right. It's not quite
exactly right, but
yeah.
It's interesting, the nuances of the sport and how deep you can get into them. It's all square here, and we're back into that situation where someone has got to go for it. And at the moment, the Italians are putting it all on the line here and trying to press and be the creators, and Germany are landing hits in defense.
Which is very good at close distance.
An assistant asking for her hair to be tucked away. You don't often see that in épée.
It could have been for some other reason. Maybe the mask strap was coming loose. I'm not exactly sure, but...
Well, Eva Borrower picked up a bronze medal in the individual tournament. Renata Alice was a quarter finalist, so certainly they've been working hard here in Cairo. A day's rest. One of very few athletes that fence on both the individual and the team that actually had a day off in between their tournaments.
These two are certainly picking each other apart, making really nice actions, but I don't see them letting anything go to passivity at all. I guess it's no longer an option for apparently the Italian, or for the German team, so they have to pressure.
Yes and no. you could force the.
Get the lead and then take the.
Well, no, you even without the lead, you could force the non-combativity.
Make a
make the substitution, and hopefully, or maybe they're
your
waiting
secondary
for
is better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So it's a ploy, it's a possible tactic. That's a lovely hit.
Very nice touch. Yeah.
Found the right moment, patient, ready when the opportunity presented itself.
The German, her touches have been extremely crisp in this match.
Nice pressing, but not risking too much. Fishing around the blade, fishing around the bell of the guard. Couple of attempts to foot, but easily wrapped up Borrower's attempt. Just keeping solid distance.
Yeah, it's impressive they're managed to come out of that without a light.
7 apiece at the halfway stage. We've had our P yellow and 2 P reds. So either hits have to be scored, or we are going to see a P black card. And Ryan, worth repeating again, the P red and the P yellows count for the team, but the unique thing about the P black is it counts for the fencer.
Yes.
And that's what opens the door to the substitution, right? If you have one.
If you have one available, that's correct. So if they put out the P blacks for both sides. Now, if there's a lead and then a passivity is called, then the P black is only applied to one side. But if it's applied to both, then both teams will be forced to do a substitution if available. In this case, they both do.
And there's no way they're going to make a substitution right now, right?
No, it would be too risky. That would be a very, I would say, a misstep in terms of a strategic idea to change them out in that sense.
I'm going to go with suicidal.
Yes.
It's going to it would be suicidal. So we have got Gardini and Schiffman back on for their second matches. I wonder whether they will play out passivity here. Both teams have a full complement of 6 athletes, so they've both got substitutes at all 3 levels. Looks to me like actually Schiffman's come out to play.
Immediately come out the gate and is pushing forward. Doesn't look like she has any intention to be the substituted player in this match.
Or that she's quite happy to try and snatch the lead and then sit back and force Gardini on.
Yeah.
There's so many facets to this team situation, particularly right now that we are on a situation of 2 P reds being given, and in defence, Gardini stayed cool, calm and collected as Schiffman went after her, and she has now got the lead. And now, with 2:31 on the clock at the start of this phase of the fight, Schiffman has to score. He's got a minute to do it.
Plenty of time. Making too much of a simple extension. I'd like to see some feint disengage or some blade action on the right. So it's a third leg, so we're fencing to 15, right? Or is this the fourth?
This is the fourth leg, believe it or not.
So yes, it is, so we're going to 20.
Hashim has taken on the refereeing duties for the last 3 legs. Egypt have been well represented in the referees' pool at this competition.
Yeah, plenty of great referees at this competition.
So we're getting into a situation where Gardini she can play out these doubles, but we're not going to get to 20 because Gardini's not going to take any risk.
No, it's not at this rate of touches. It's unlikely. Schiffman's being a little bit more cautious now about how she's pressuring, which might lead to leveling the play with the field a little bit. Certainly not going for doubles. Hesitation will kill you.
So Schiffman looking back on her team. That's Ita Schiffman. She's looking back for some guidance. And I think that actually they were saying, keep going, keep pressing, see if you can get one.
I've seen very little of the veterans, very little instances where they tell their teammates to back off for time, unless there's very little time left. They always say fence.
Just get in
Go
there,
have
go
at
for
her.
it, yeah. At this stage, not really much to say about a double, especially given the fact that we're miles away from the target score of 20. Just means that some time has been killed and the gap is maintained. And start hearing the German team shouting to Schiffman the amount of time that's left on the clock.
Especially because the last time she was up, when the time ran out, she was unaware on the first run. It's actually funny. I did referee Ms. Schiffman earlier on in early individual matches. She came to me and was talking about how she felt the belt was too short.
Now, Category C fencers have been perhaps amongst the most impressive here over the age of 70 or 70 years and over.
Absolutely.
And they've come away from this championships, these two, with mighty impressive performances. And they hand over now to the Category B fencers.
Now, this is where we are going to see the Miss Fisher take a more stronger offense, I believe. I'm interested to see how she comes out of her comfort zone.
Yeah, they got 2 calls of non-combativity in their first leg. And with the score as it is, the Italy leading, well, at some point, at least before a minute has run out, we are going to have to see Dagmar Fischer go after this. Otherwise, she is going to get a black card.
There's a lot of tall fencers who really, train believing that they need to be, especially in a big counter-offensive type of fencers. Stay on the defense and play on the blade and try to get their opponent to make a wide action so they can just extend earlier. But they're rather successful on the offense if they want to. So I like to see tall fencers take the offense more often.
Just
Brilliant.
punching the point, I think that's known as. Whereas you're extending through your attack, you actually put your hand onto your opponent's point. It's about your opponent putting that point in the right place.
Yes, absolutely.
But that was
she managed to lift. She's lifting from low line, lifting that hand up. She knows she's it's the line she has to take. She can't really go from up to down because it just does not have that angle.
just a flick over the guard there
It's
onto the wrist.
Competition if we can pick apart the hand more successfully here.
Well, we've seen
Going back and forth.
we've seen them going for each other much more in this one than they did at the beginning of their first one.
So you see each of them is now throwing out those touches towards the hand. And again, another one up in the bottom of the hand from Turia.
Now, at some point in the next 4 or 5 minutes of fencing, this match and the next, I'm wondering whether the Germans are going to have to come out and have a go at this. I don't think they're going to leave it all to Alice, their anchor, to do. And we're going to see Dagmar Fischer go after this.
I'd say it's difficult because she is trying to push and be more aggressive, but I see most of her action is against the hand, whereas opposed to a deeper action.
Just calling halt in time to save Dagmar Fischer there. And, Cirillo not happy
Not
about
giving
this.
ground at the moment is what she's trying. So the referee needs to set the ground here to tell them where they need to be situated.
Well, technically, because they've stepped into each other, they've got to use that as the middle of their on-guard position.
Yes, that's how I would center it. I'll just walk up, shove my hand in the middle of them, and tell them to both take distance.
Well, I think that Dagmar Fischer's given up a lot more ground than Gianna Cirillo. And
we've had a distancing problem historically in the past with the was it London or was it the Beijing Olympics with the Korean fencer versus was it a German as well? I think they were taking on guard really close to each other in the 1 second. To remind me of that, it hurts my heart a little bit.
Have you noted I'm not saying anything about that at all?
Yeah.
I actually, to be fair, I can say one thing about it. I was working for a well-known British broadcasting company at that Olympic Games in London, and we had an hour and 45 minutes of no fencing to talk about.
Yeah. That was certainly something you could talk about.
Yeah, just landing a hit before jumping off the piste acrobatically. So
he definitely seems in the advantage on the defense here.
Fischer running in this time, just trying to get something out of Cirillo.
He's actually rather clever because she took a quick, offensive and then immediately drew her out. So Fischer scored on it, and actually what was the defensive or counter-offensive actually, which might be a good switch if she can catch on to that touch, that strategy. Although it's going to be hard to draw Cirillo out consistently when she's been so successful on the defense.
Another rush of blood to the head from Cirillo.
That was an interesting touch. Actually didn't see where she hit. It looked like she hit when the blade came down.
Oh.
In fact, I actually don't know that she hit. It almost seemed like she scored on the piste when she hit.
There's a solid green light here.
I think the Italians are asking for video. Yes. Yeah, they're asking for her to check video and make sure that the contact was actually on valid target. The light could be delayed, and so I was actually looking. I'm not sure what light I saw, but it did not seem like the light came up when her point was near valid target.
Well, we're going to have come and have a look at this. There's discussion going on between the referee and assistant.
If I were the Italians, I would ask for this to be looked at.
Well, I think Dagmar Fischer has said, "Don't take it away from me without going to look at it." So they both want a review, and the referees both approach the video table. It certainly doesn't look just about catching at a weird angle. It doesn't look like the hit lands on the body. And then there's a hit. Now, the piece should be earthed.
It should, yes. But sometimes the tip can get stuck. So when they hit the piste, if the tip just, didn't actually release from after it was depressed, it can still register a touch.
Well, I think.
And as the light was continuing to stay on, that's what happened. Oh. She hit herself. Oh. Even more interesting.
No hit given.
Is that what they said? They said that she hit herself? No, I didn't actually. I couldn't hear them.
No, I think that may have been an option. Well, no hit given. 45 seconds left on the clock. Cirillo still with the advantage. And the weapon was exchanged. I mean, it was a solid light, and I think perhaps the
tip was probably stuck.
Yeah, stuck in, and wherever that happened, the referee had a look, and the double. Well, we may start to creep towards this target score as the Germans go after this one. We're still miles away from the potential 25 that can be scored in this leg. And I am not sure that Dagmar Fischer is doing enough for her teammate here in the anchor leg. I think she's left this attempted offensive manoeuvre a little too late.
It'd be very difficult to make a comeback, but it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible, but don't forget, she's going up against the bronze medalist in the individual, Eva Borova, Renata Alas in the anchor leg. Both tough cookies.
And they were evenly matched when they came together the first round.
Well, 5 for Cirillo, just 3 for Fischer. So Alice comes back on for the Germans with a mountain to climb against Eva Borova. It's tricky, isn't it? And like you say, it's difficult to see how Alice can close this one up. 5 hits is a massive lead in epee, much more so than any other weapon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Deficits are really the hardest to cover in epee amongst all the weapons, because there really is just no safety in controlling an attack. You know, it's just...
The defending fencer can play the percentage game and go for the doubles, right?
Absolutely.
So here we go. This for gold. Italy with 1 foot on the podium.
She's coming out strong, being extremely active. It's it'll certainly be a different fight than the first time they came together.
Well, Alice going into the low line, and she's not. She's got a tiny little bit of a height and reach disadvantage, but going to the low line accentuates that.
It does, and Borova managed to pull distance and make an action or response immediately. She's very ready to make that pull distance and flesh. Because when you go up on that low line, there's not really much you can do except take a remise. So it's a high probability of a double or one-line action for Borova.
Well, a minute's gone, and oh, that's almost
again,
worked out for her.
Just managed to pull that tip up so that it didn't depress that point and make that light come on.
But equally, Borova's closing the distance cleverly as well to stop that from...
It's the same action 3 times. So
yeah.
It goes deep lunge for the leg, Borova pulls the distance and makes a response immediately.
Yeah.
Slightly different that time with a parry post.
Such a massive advantage, the lead in the last leg. Such a huge advantage. Your opponent becomes predictable. You kind of know that you're going to get forced to your back line at some point, but you're just working on trying to kill as much time as possible. And the other thing is delay how long it takes to get to the back line.
Yeah. Certainly not doing it any favors on the defense.
But in some respects, Alice has no other choice. She's got to go after this. We might as well go down fighting.
Yeah.
Borova just buying herself a little bit more space. Halfway through the last period and in close quarters.
Now, I don't know if they'd give a card for that or not. Looks like they didn't.
Oh,
you're not allowed to jump off this strip to avoid getting hit by your opponent. And she has done it twice. So it's one thing when you're trying to pass the opponent and take an angle and you end up going off the strip even before you fully pass. As long as you're trying, to pass and not to just avoid a touch by jumping off the piece, that's legal. But if the intention is very clearly to avoid getting hit, there should be a card.
Finally, she finds a way through. difference though in a minute. Make that 10. And we're edging closer to the target score of 30 as well. And there's another one. And I got a question for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Why is Renata Alice not pushing Ava Borrower right to the back line? It's like she's launching that attack when there's still another 75 centimetres or so before the back foot hits the back line.
There's always this feeling, though, amongst fencers where there's a point where your opponent, defensively, is just holding their ground more, and you just don't feel like you can keep pressuring and waiting to make an actual finish or make an actual action, because then that hesitation, suddenly a counteroffensive or an attack from your opponent will land ahead of you.
I hear you, but
she could be more patient, but and perhaps Burrow will allow her to continue pushing her back into the end line, but it's very likely that you'll see that footwork from Burrow start to take smaller steps. And that's where it's really hard to continue pushing her. She's really getting ready to make a counteroffensive action. If you don't make an action in first, then just like in épée, right? You got that 16 millisecond window to touch before your opponent. Any hesitation is just gonna punish you.
Well, my hat goes off to Renata Alice. She's pressed all the way through this fight. She was handed a 5-point deficit, and she's continued to go after this despite getting hit in the defense. Gets another one back, but a 12-point deficit, 6.72 seconds to go, and it will be another hit for the Italians. That takes them to the target score, and it takes them to the 2019 Women's Team épée World title.
And a nice lesson learned for those younger fencers out there to never stop. Don't stop. Compete all the way into the last second, because you might fence this other person again in an individual or another team match in the future, and even that one touch, you might learn something about that fencer that'll be extremely useful for you in the future.
Well, it was an interesting